Hello viewers, you are watching QTV, the Gambia's first private TV station, and we are broadcasting live from our studios here on Kairaba Avenue. My name is Aliu Sise, and this is your weekly State of Affairs program. Well, if there's one legacy that Gambians will perhaps remember President Barrow for, is the construction of roads across the country. And one institution responsible for, of course, designing and ensuring that these roads projects are constructed and completed on time is the National Roads Authority. Well, there are still persistent questions regarding quality, transparency, and the long-term impact of all these roads across the country. Joining me this week to look at the mandate and, of course, what the NRA is all about, the achievements, challenges, and the way forward, I have in the studio the Managing Director, Suleiman Sumare Jane, who is the Managing Director of the National Roads Authority. MD, thank you so much for coming on the program.
Thank you very much for having me, Aliu. It's definitely a pleasure being here.
For someone who is watching right now, what exactly does the NRA do, and how does its work impact everyday life in the Gambia?
Thank you very much for the question. That's a loaded question because NRA is virtually responsible for all roads in the country by mandate. And we are virtually the same institution and authority that's in charge of maintaining all roads in the Gambia and also the custodian of the road corridor in the Gambia as well. Now, part of that also includes the supervision, design, and monitoring of all new road construction as well in the country. So essentially, if there's any road project in the Gambia, it's directly under the purview of the National Roads Authority. And if there's any needed road repairs on our road network, it's also the responsibility of the National Roads Authority. Safety as well is also the responsibility of the National Roads Authority. So essentially, what we do at the NRA impacts everyday life, and it is something that it really touches everybody in the country, in a nutshell.
So do you believe the NRA is actually delivering on that core mandate?
I think at this point, we can say a resounding yes to that, compared to maybe, at its inception when things were virtually, just at a learning stage, if I may call it that. Right now, I think, we have matured and understand a whole lot of what we need to be doing and what is happening. Of course, there's always room for improvement. There's a broad task that's been given to one authority, and often, we are faced with challenges. Now, we do have representatives all over the country that do observe and report back to us issues relating to any kind of road safety, road maintenance needs, or even, the need to construct new roads in certain areas. But then again, there's still more to be done. And of course, you're talking about the Gambia. Small as it is, it's still, a pretty big country that will require more efforts to get things done effectively.
So how will you describe our current state of the road network in the country?
Well, now we have a network. Now we have a road network, whereas before we only had a few arteries and a few feeder roads that connect to those arteries. Right now, we do have a road network. And if you look at even the proposal to build new roads, right now we are considering starting up an additional 1,500 kilometers of road, which beginning next month, we will start laying the foundation stones for those new roads. That's completely different from what we currently have under construction as well. There's a lot that we are doing at NRA that's virtually impacting lives and literally changing this country.
So what percentage of these roads currently are paved and versus the unpaved one?
All new roads that are being proposed or are under construction are all paved roads. So we are virtually, not building any more, quote unquote, just laterite roads and leaving them like that. We are actually, paving them, meaning sealing them as well.
So are we really making progress, or we are just trying to meet the demand?
It's about development. And development is about making progress and also making an effort to meet the demands as well. Now, given the limited resources, sometimes it may be difficult to say we will meet all demands, but the effort is there, thus the progress. So essentially, what the government had made very clear is that if the president has it his way, he will virtually have a connecting road leading to each and every single community in this country. And we are actually, not saying that, we're meeting all of that right now, but we are very, very close.
So if you had to be candid on this program, MD, just tell me, where are we actually feeling short as far as our road infrastructure is concerned?
Okay, maybe the only area that I can point at to say where we are falling short is everything that we are doing right now, should have been what we should have done a long time ago. Had it been the previous governments, meaning, the government of Sadaro Keraba Jawara, that of Yaya Jammeh, did as much as the government of President Adama Barrow is doing, we would have been much further ahead today as far as the infrastructural development of this country is concerned. Now, you cannot look at the development of any nation and ignore roads, because without connectivity, virtual development cannot happen. And I'm glad that we have a president that is very cognizant of that and gave that a priority to say that we want to build a road network that will connect communities to all kinds of services, either be it markets, schools, hospitals, you name it. A road and a proper and good road network helps people get to all those necessities. And in this case, Gambia for the first time is actually getting there.
And like you said, there's that, we focus more on building new roads, but what about maintaining the existing ones? Because we have seen most of the old roads that which they perhaps were constructed under Jammeh are now dilapidated. And certainly even some of the roads that are being constructed by the current government, the current state of those roads are also not, good as one would expect. Their durability is questionable.
Okay, I would tend to disagree, with the second part of your question a little bit, because under the new government, meaning under the Jammeh, not the Jammeh, but the Barrow government, most of the roads that we are constructing are highly durable roads, because we are virtually going to change the standards completely. Now, under Jammeh, there were some durable roads, but the standards were not, virtually internationally recognized and pronounced. Under President Barrow, that has changed. There's still a great need for road maintenance in this country, because if you look at, the little bit of roads that we had, even under President Jawara, most of them have dilapidated to virtually, no use. Now, we are gradually coming back to reconstruct some of those roads, especially in the urban area. Now, the new construction methods that we are applying guarantees, longevity and, better quality of roads. And that's what our main focus is at this point. Yes, we do need to maintain a lot of the old roads that have dilapidated, but we have to understand that, these occurred, over the years. If you have, a country that existed, for over 60 years and have had a few roads that were barely maintained for the past 50 plus years, of course, there will be issues.
So why do you think some of our roads, tend to deteriorate subtly or maybe quickly after construction?
Okay.
You've lived in the West. Some
Yes.
of the roads, they last for decades, but it seems to be a different case.
The West invests heavily on road infrastructure. Now, developing countries virtually were not investing as heavily as the West was. Right now, in the Gambia, we are investing heavily in road construction. Essentially, the new roads that we are constructing will far outlive most of the older roads that we had before. Because right now, the minimum lifespan of every single road that's being constructed is 25 years. That didn't used to be the case. If you look at the amount of money that the government is spending on these new roads, far exceeds what the previous governments used to spend. Now, quality cannot be compromised. Right now, if you look at even the people, or let's say the professionals that we had back then, that were virtually taking up the responsibility of monitoring, observing, and inspecting all roads, either be it under construction or that requires some maintenance. We have a different caliber of professionals at this point. NRA only used to have maybe 2 or 3 engineers back then. Right now, NRA can boast of having in excess of 35 engineers. Out of 35 engineers, we have minimum of 15 to 20 who are master's degree holders. And out of those, 15 to 20, we have minimum of about 10 to 15 who are, actually, roadway designers, or call them, highway engineers. So we also, have, structural engineers, geotechnical engineers, and most important of all, now, we have, hydraulic engineers at the NRA. These were rarely found in the country. It used to be that, you'll only have, maybe civil engineers, here and there. But now, we actually have virtually, most needed expertise at the institution that can take up, pretty much anything relating to road construction and maintenance, for that matter. So we have a better understanding of what to do. We have a better grip of what we need to do in order to maintain our roads for a longer term. Now, I will also call upon the country to also, maybe throw in their support, behind us, and also, behind the government as well too, because the government is virtually, giving us all the tools and ammunition that we need to be able to effectively go out and execute our duties as professionals. Now, it used to be that we have to rely on foreign experts, to come in and, dictate to us as to what, where, and how to really take up some of these serious road construction, activities. That's not the case anymore.
You mentioned, that you try as much as possible to prioritize standard. You said, you want to have roads that may last for the next 25 years. One would say, despite all these things, we have seen most of the roads tend to flood during rainy season. Why is that the case?
Reason being, flooding is not something that you virtually calculate, control just by building one road. Flooding is virtually, really looking at an environment and determining, where your discharge points need to be, where your collection points need to be. And in the Gambia for a long time, we've ignored this need, simply because we are a very lucky and, maybe blessed country, that we only have rainy season 3 months, at best maybe 4 months out of the year. There are other countries who are not as blessed as we are, and they have, some serious stormwater runoffs who have to prioritize the collection and discharge of storm water. And the Gambia has been neglected. And often people used to say, well, we just have to deal with it through the rainy season. And after the rainy season, everything will be okay. But that is not a solution. That's wishful thinking. Right now, what's happening, if you look at all of our road networks, we are virtually designing corresponding drainage systems to effectively capture most stormwater runoff and either collect them or discharge them effectively to known collection points. Now, that's also necessary in the longevity, or should I say the lifelong maintenance of our roads, because stormwater does destroy, the roadbed. Now, it'll be that, through its runoff or maybe collection on the road, maybe detrimental, to the lifespan, of the road.
So why is it that, some of the roads are without drainage, a proper drainage system? Or sometimes maybe even the drainage is too small to allow for easy flow of heavy water?
Okay, there are different types of drainage systems. Okay, all the new roads that are being constructed do have effective, that's the operative word, effective drainage systems along with them. A drainage system does not always mean that it has to be a gutter, as people were used to. No. There are other types of, really discharge systems, in the case of, shallow drains, which people are looking at to say, no, that it's not a drainage system, but it is a drainage mechanism as well. But then again, all of those right there, do lead to known and effective, collection points. The key is discharging the water effectively where you could positively collect it, or maybe dispose of it, or collect it and, make other use of the water, which that's one of the things that the Gambia actually needs to look into. Because right now, we discharge a lot of our water, into waste, whereas we could have been collecting most of our water and use it for irrigation, for that matter, fish farming, or other, activities, especially during the time of the dry season when we don't have a lot of water or any storm water runoff, for that matter. But nonetheless, right now, we are seriously looking at and seriously designing effective drainage systems to go along with our road network.
Earlier on, you mentioned your priorities at the moment. You plan to build or construct over 1,000 kilometers of roads across the country. Right. Just share with us, how do you determine or how do you decide which region or which community get this road? Is it based on need or politics or maybe the economic return?
The quick answer is need, okay, and demand. Most of the time, if you look at right now, any area that you can point at in the Gambia where there are, heavy settlements, there's a road leading to that area. That was dictated by need at the time when we prioritized those road constructions. If you look at the way we build roads, we don't just look at an area to say, oh, let's build all the roads in KMC, or maybe let's build all the roads in West Coast. We targetedly look at areas that are in dire need of a road, and we prioritize those areas. Now, that virtually creates major arteries. But then when you do build those major arteries, there also comes the need for feeder roads to connect people to those major arteries. Sometimes people will tell you, well, I can take a taxi all the way down to Bansang, but it'll have to drop me off at the main road. Then I'll have to jump on, a donkey cart to take me down to my village. If you look at what's happening right now, that's changing. Now we are not only connecting just major towns to a road network, but we are also connecting the villages through feeder roads that connect them to those major towns, all across the country for that matter. Now we look at our population density as well too. We look at the need for people to have to leave their homes to go to the hospital. One, that's a priority. We prioritize those first. And we look at people having to get their produce from their farms and being able to transport them over to markets. If you look at the newly launched giraffe projects, that was mainly targeting those communities.
Which is around over 200 kilometers.
Yeah, that's over 200 kilometers.
Feeder roads. I mean, you talk about the issue of standard. I just want to find out from you, as a managing director, what are some of these specific benchmarks you use, or are there any independent verifiers of the standard of these roads aside from NRA?
Yes. If you look at every single road that's being constructed, there's an independent consultant that's hired, either being, most of the time, by the government to oversee the construction of the road. And NRA comes in, as the consultant's consultant to verify all activities that are happening, throughout the road construction process. Now, the consultant is there to work with the contractor to ensure that the contractor complies with the standards and the specifications given to them. Now, in the event that there is any misunderstanding or any ambiguity with regards to the understanding of the specifications, NRA comes in as the consultant's consultant to explain that. Now, in instances where there appears to be or there occurs any kind of disagreement between the consultants and the contractor, NRA is the referee, because we are the final approving authority that will accept or disapprove the construction or the quality that's being presented to us. There's been instances where even the consultants satisfied certain road types, and they came to me, with concerns regarding the way the consultant approve certain measures, and we disqualified it and say we will not accept it. And the contractor had to go back and redo the whole entire road. In some instances, even had to deliver a better road product to us than what was initially designed and proposed. Now, part of the reason why that is so important is that we are no longer accepting just anybody virtually giving us anything or telling us anything, and we just believe it.
So what criteria do you use to select these contractors and consultants?
Experience, deliverable, and integrity. Okay? You can have experience, but you haven't delivered any projects to us within the past few years on time. You are not considered credible to us. You can have the experience and have delivered projects, but you don't have the integrity. You are not credible to us as contractors. Now, this is the new day at NRA. Right now, we are not taking anything for granted, and we are not taking anything lightly with regards to the quality that's being delivered to us and the time that that quality and that project is delivered to us. Any contractor that we give a project to, you better respect the timelines that's being given to you. You better respect the quality that's being given to you and the specifications. Anything less, we will not accept it. And now we will blacklist, and we have already started blacklisting contractors, thereby rendering them virtually useless or futile in the sense that they can no longer do any projects for us.
Give us names.
I'd rather not, pinpoint or maybe, point fingers at, I mean, we are on TV. But the fact of the matter is, there are contractors out there, who are watching this television, session who understand exactly what I'm talking about.
Do you just stop at putting them on blacklist, or you take legal action as well?
Legal action is dictated by the severity of the non-deliverable. Let's say, for example, if we gave you a project that you were supposed to deliver a certain quality and you decided to go shortcut the quality. Let's say, for instance, you're supposed to give us, 6-inch asphalt road. You decided to cut that down to 3 inches and virtually, leaving a variance of additional 3 inches. We will calculate that, throughout the whole entire length and breadth of the road, and we will not pay you for it. The reality is, we do have control through payment mechanisms. Okay. It's not a question of, we prepay everything. Okay, of course, some of these contractors are paid advance payments, but then again, when they don't deliver, we cut the advance payments out of their IPCs. Okay, so now, when they did not complete the project, there's still, balance in the contract. We either push them, to complete, while we, deduct, the payments, or the money is not that they are owing us, or have not utilized, and try to find another contractor to finish the project. So
do you agree then the NRM perhaps didn't do their homework right by doing a proper background check on some of these contractors before you just give them any contract? Because if there was a proper background check on most of these contractors, looking at their past records, past achievements, then you'll be able to know whether these are serious contractors to give some of these projects.
Now we do. Back then, we didn't have the ability or maybe the tools to be able to do that. Let's call a spade a spade. We didn't even have a vast pool of contractors back then that you could go back, and really look at their history, because a lot of the contractors were new at the time. It's only a few contractors that you can point at to say they've had a long history in the Gambia. Those you can go back and look at their histories. Now, all the contractors that are here, we do have records on them. And even the ones that are coming from, maybe out of the country, international contractors for that matter, we go back to their home countries and verify all works that they have done in that particular country. The ones that are doing works in other countries as well, we go to those countries and verify the quality of work that they have delivered in those countries. It's funny, but now other countries come to the Gambia to verify contractors who are working with us, because they know the quality that we have right now, and they know the standard that we are abiding by, and it's virtually something that they're emulating. So they come to us and ask about certain contractors, their performance, the quality that they have delivered to us, maybe the timely delivery of the work that they have done for us, and we write reports and give it to them. So that will help them assess those contractors, based on the report that we're giving them. We do the same thing. Any new contractor that's coming into the Gambia, we actually look at your history.
So in terms of, our own Gambian contractors, I understand you are now trying to give them some of these contracts,
That's
trying
right.
to Gambianize some of these projects. How do you rate their performance? It's one thing to say, okay, we want to give it to Gambia's contractors, but delivery, as you said, is also something that you don't have to compromise just because the person is a Gambian. How do you rate their performance?
Tough. We rate them very tough. Because, look, you have to be a serious Gambian to really take up the development of your country serious. We don't take it easy just because you're a Gambian. We say, oh, let's just forget about this right here. No. We actually take you to task. Now, while taking you to task, if you need assistance, technical assistance, we are always there to help you. Okay? Sometimes, if you need financial assistance, we are also, always willing to maybe help you to get the tools that you need. But we don't compromise on the delivery of your project. When we give you a project, you better ensure that you deliver the project on time and within budget. This whole idea of, no, I'm going to hold on to the project, and there's a term that they used to use, which is called price escalation. We are virtually shying away from that completely. Because with most of our contracts now, all new contracts, we are taking away the price escalation clauses. Now, there are certain other considerations that will really warrant us not having to change, certain, considerations in the contracts. But just use the usage of the term, price escalation, because you have elapsed a certain, number of years or maybe timeline on the project, Just requesting payment without proper justification, that's out.
Yeah, because I have seen instances where the president will go out to visit some of the road projects, and from his facial expression, you will know that definitely he's not happy with the progress of work. Absolutely. Because he wants to see this project completed on time.
Absolutely.
Now, let's look at the issue of procurement, because when you talk about road infrastructure, road projects, I mean, the issue of procurement comes to mind. Mm-hmm. What system do you have in place to ensure you are able to prevent what many perceive as kickbacks, corruption here and there in giving out these contracts?
Well, you know, when people talk about kickbacks, you know, those are, you know, quote unquote, you know, the critics' perception on what maybe they don't even understand. The reality is, you know, we don't give contracts biasly. Everything we do goes through a proper tender process, and in most cases, open tender. Now, you have to understand, when you say we are tendering 5 kilometers of road, you will have every single, you know, mason in the Gambia that will also bid for that particular project, because they feel like, you know, they are Gambians, you know, and they should qualify by virtue of the fact that they are Gambians. Now, everything that we just talked about comes back into play. History, okay? Knowledge, okay? Integrity. All these things are going to come into play. I mean, how much do you know about road construction? How many projects have you done in the past? How credible are you? Okay, how much knowledge do you have in this particular sector? All these things, you know, do come into play. Now, that's how we shortlist contractors, you know, based on their past experiences. One. Number two, you know, based on their ability to deliver these projects on time. Okay, and number three, integrity. We look at these things, you know, that's how we rate contractors, and that's how we give them projects. Now, these are not things, you know, that me personally I sit and dictate. There's always a contracts committee that determine what process to use for what type of projects. And they're the ones to know, and it's a committee.
And you have no influence over the committee?
None, zero influence over the committee. As a matter of fact, the decision that the committee makes, most of all, you may not even know who is doing what in the committee. Now, by virtue of my position as the managing director, I am the chairman of the contracts committee. But then again, when it comes to the criteria that the committee, you know, abides by, I'm not the one that sets the criteria. They do all of their work, all the assessments, you know, and the assessments go through technical assessments, you know, to start with. You know, they go through financial assessments, and during the technical assessments, you know, they virtually, you know, look at, you know, previous work experience, you know, the status of the company, meaning how much professionals do they have, you know, working for them, and the quality of work that they have delivered in the past. And also they look at, let's say, materials, equipment, and everything that they have readily available to them to constitute, you know, the technical consideration. And all this go through a scoring system. And then if you pass on the technical, then they go through the financial, meaning your financial proposal, you know, what is being, you know, presented. And, you know, it's a whole community, you know, consists of sometimes 20, 30 people from all, you know, most ministries, finance, you know, works, GPPA, you know, of course, you know, the NRA, you know, already technical, you know, all, you know, converge, you know, and virtually do the assessments.
Earlier this year, you went on a nationwide tour to inspect roads, and you were quoted to have said, I mean, you were able to save over $500 million by using local engineers. I just want to find out from you, when these road projects fail prematurely, who takes the responsibility, you or the engineers?
Okay, I think, you know, let's also, you know, clarify that part. You know, when we say we were saving the government, it was not 500, it was 600 million.
Yeah, that's why I said over 500 million.
Yeah. Now, that was actually conducting the feasibility studies that we would have otherwise have to give to foreign consultants to do for us. Now, you have to understand, to do 150 kilometers feasibility studies, to hire a foreign consultant will cost us almost $5 million just to do that, 150 kilometers. And it would have taken them maybe anywhere between 6 months to a year to do. Where we came in, and this NRA, you know, not even other engineers, NRA engineers and the Ministry of Works, we took up consultancy for 1,000 kilometers. And virtually, only cost to government was maybe, you know, call it, you know, necessity cost, fuel, okay, you know, maybe, you know, per diem, you know, for, you know, our engineers who are going out, you know, to site. So essentially, if you look at the total cost, you know, in that, to do 1,000 kilometers, costing the government, less than $50 million. Whereas if we hired a foreign consultant, it would have cost us maybe minimum $20 million. And the delivery time, if it's taking them 6 months or 1 year to do 150 kilometers, and it's only taking us 3 months to do over 600 kilometers, you look at the value in that. Essentially, we saved the government over $20 million. And if you do the math, that's actually in excess of $1.4 billion. It's not just 600 million, but in excess of 1.4 billion. That's what we save government. Now, and this is an important point to really dive into.
Yeah.
Because the fact of the matter is, that's what happens when you invest in your own people. When you build quality, your own people can deliver for you at a fraction of the cost that it would have otherwise not cost you. Now, what am I saying here? The government took it upon itself to train engineers for the National Roads Authority. These engineers are back now. They are giving back to their country. Starting with what? All this work that we would have had to give to foreign consultants are being done by Gambian engineers now. And right now, as we speak today, we are actually up to 750 kilometers in just a 2-month span. That's unheard of. And what do we have? We have a combination of all trades as far as conducting feasibility is concerned. We have our environmentalists out in the field. We have our civil engineers, surveyors, geotechnical engineers, soil scientists, highway design engineers, all out in the field at once, virtually in teams, collecting data, collating data, assessing, and doing the design at the same time. We just had a meeting at the ministry earlier before I came over here, and that's what we're virtually looking at. And I would really encourage, especially government professionals who have the experience or have had the opportunity to do this work, to come up. Because we actually need them at the review process to help perfect the skills of these young men and women who are out there doing very good work. And I would also like to take this opportunity to really commend my team for having done an excellent job and delivering for their country, because they're tireless. Believe it or not, some of them even worked on Easter. Some of my team members even worked on Quality Day. They were out in the hot sun, in URR, some of them in CRR, doing this feasibility surveys, out walking on foot. So essentially, of course, they're Gambians, and we can say, they are being paid for that right there, but they could have easily been tired. They could have easily said that it's too much for me to be doing in the month of Ramadan.
The ambitions is quite high as far as the government is concerned and the president with regards to road infrastructure. In fact, I call him Mr. Infrastructure because he believes so much in infrastructure. I just want to find out from you, are you in any way concerned in terms of the funding for all these road projects?
Not the least bit.
Do you have adequate funding or sufficient funding for all these, projects?
Not only do we have sufficient funding, but we also have sufficient funding avenues. Sufficient funding avenues in the sense that we do have opportunities that have never been tapped into. If you look at the National Roads Authority and the equivalent of the National Roads Authority in other countries, they are all overextended, all been given all types of loans in the past. But in the Gambia, the National Roads Authority don't owe anybody. And we do have the opportunity and the ability to go out and borrow as well, because we are one of the most credible institutions in this country. The reality is, the government have options that they can tap into to bring revenue into the country. You have to understand, Gambia don't even have one single toll road yet. Not one single one. And these are options that we can explore that will virtually bring revenue.
Is this something coming up after the completion of the third phase?
Of the Baden-Harden,
yeah.
OIC,
yes.
highway?
Are you considering that?
We are considering that. So all fullers who are traveling on the highway will have to pay.
Why?
Well, look, it's another avenue that we can get funds to continue working on the development of this country. But further to that, we are also looking at the Stinkona Manina.
You're confirming that is on the table as we speak?
It's an option that we are considering, yes. But let me also state this. We are also working on the Stinkona Manina bypass. That's going to be a fully tolled road. Now, that road is expected to really reduce the congestion that we currently have, on the calling, Banjul to become a highway,
Any
and going
timeline?
upwards. It's ongoing right now. Timeline, we would love to get started on that before the end of this year.
And MD, what are you doing about the Westfield Tabakoto Road? Have you seen the condition of that road?
Yes.
It's in a very deplorable condition.
Yes, I agree with that. And part of the reason, why that area is, deplorable. I mean, if you recall, maybe sometime last year, we actually did, a very, quote unquote, innovative intervention, especially at the Georgetown Junction.
Overnight operation.
Yeah, we did overnight operation,
by
which was very successful. We intend to continue such activities.
Okay.
Now, if you look at the Tabakoto area, you have a lot of storm runoff issues in that area that virtually, makes it difficult to just address the condition. It's not just about the potholes in the area. That entire area will need, some sort of a redesigning and the construction. Now, to do that, we are also, considering, certain, measures to help, alleviate, the issues in that area. But we have to start, with the flooding issues. Because regardless of whatever you do over there, as far as the road is concerned, if you don't address the water issue, it's going to end up dilapidating. And then you'll also ask me questions about, you just did this road.
You're talking about coordination, but can you tell us, are we having, or is there that enough coordination, happening between, road planning and, of course, urban development? There's so much development happening in the urban areas. Mm-hmm. Are you ensuring that all these roads are designed in a manner that, is not going to affect urban development?
Urban development virtually follows road development as part of infrastructure. Now, a lot of people, look at, where roads have already been developed and would decide to go and say, okay, look, I need to build a nice structure over here. Mm. You see what's happening at the OIC.
Willinkama is an example.
Exactly.
It was a place that had to reach.
No,
the other day I was there, I was like, wow, this place has really changed.
Try Burfoot.
Well, President Barrow is Dubai, so.
And he's right. Because those of us that actually tried to go to Burfoot years ago, and it took us just from
Gamtel Johnson to
Burfoot used to take about 45 minutes, right? From Turntable to Burfoot used to take at least an hour. But look at it right now. Gamtel Johnson, to Burfoot is literally 10 minutes.
By the way, it was something that they really doubted when he made the promise in the last election campaign that it was just political promise. But at least now we have seen changes, to be honest. These are facts that we have seen. And then
it is right now.
But away from that, MD, we have seen in the 2024-2025 audit report where it was highlighted by the auditors instances where NRA project personnel were allegedly requesting personal items like iPhones and, of course, laptops from contractors. Do you think this is appropriate?
Very appropriate. As a matter of fact, the auditors themselves, first of all, they need to go back, and look at accounting principles and procedures. I'm not an accountant, okay? But how can you justify maybe turning around and effectively calculating the cost of a project, whereby you were actually using your personal laptop to execute works on that particular project on your personal laptop? That's the true cost that should have been tabulated and charged to the project. That's number one. Your cell phone.
That's to the contractor.
No, to the contractor.
Okay.
Okay, the way these things are calculated, that's what you call a provisional sum item in every single contract to address the specifics. Because, for example, if NRA is to go ahead and buy these items for our staff who are working on the project, it requires a horrendous procurement procedure that will take forever for us to be able to accomplish. But the contractor can be instructed to go buy these things much easier, and they don't have to abide by the same procurement rules that we abide by. That's the reason why you put these provisional sums on the contract for the contractor to execute upon your instructions. Now, if you look at even paper, if you buy paper for the project, that's funds being taken away, be it from the institution and not charged to the project. So if you're telling me that the project cost me $10 million, and out of the $10 million, I spend $2 million out of NRA funds to pay for activities and stationery for the project didn't actually cost you $10 million, it cost you $12 million. You just funded the additional $2 million. So to avoid that, and you get accountants, and I'm pretty sure there are plenty of accountants that are watching us, and they understand these things. We expected the auditors to know these things themselves, and we actually took time to explain it to them. and even give them the contract and the contractual clauses that virtually define these things. But for some reason, I'm being told that they chose to ignore that. Because if you put that
on paper, it appears as if the contractor is buying this thing for the project supervisors. So one will assume then there was that conflict of interest. Because if you are supervising a contractor and now you are asking the contractor to buy you iPhones and all those things, in the first place, why iPhones and Samsung mobile phones? Why do they need that?
Number one, they need to communicate.
So they need iPhone 16 to communicate.
I don't know about iPhone 16. Maybe I don't think that was specifically stated that it was an iPhone 16
and expensive Samsung Galaxy and all those things.
Well, I'm not sure. If that, first of all, when you go out, to a project site, okay, these inspectors, I need them, to provide me with pictures that depict whatever explanation they are giving me over the phone as to the activities or a situation that they are describing to me, so that I can give them better advice or recommendation to help address the situation at the project site. Now understand, that actually happened in Basse. We're here in Bijilo. Any activity that happens right there, in Basse, I would have to leave my office to go all the way over there in order to be able to address something that I could have actually just addressed over the phone. But if you give me an effective picture, okay, with an explanation, or just give me a detailed report, right, that you type on your laptop, that you bought through the provisional sums, I can give you better advice, quicker response. We don't delay the project keeps moving. So essentially, what's being captured, and it's easy to really point at that to say, that's illegal, or like the audit. Yeah, the audit, to say that right there. But they should have stepped back, and look at effective, project management. I actually had people calling me all the way from the United States, asking me, do the auditors even understand project management?
So do those funds belong to the project supervisors, or it belongs to NRA?
It actually belongs to NRA at the time.
Okay.
When they do buy those, and if the project is over, it gets delivered back. Okay. And you know what we do? Yeah. If you're going to another project, you actually carry those with you. So it virtually helps us, or helps government not have to foot these bills up front.
Because I'm just assuming if you have to buy iPhone for every supervisor in every project with all the projects you are implementing in this country, then it's become a problem.
Maybe if you have 20 supervisors, you buy 20.
Yes. Away from that, MD,
yes.
I understand last week you were in Ebo Town. You led a delegation to Ebo Town. What were you doing there?
Well, interesting. I didn't know that actually was everywhere. Yeah. No, well, we have lots of projects at Ebo Town.
Okay.
And Ebo Town is actually an area that the president is very particular about, because he looked at the plight of the people that live in Ebo Town and virtually made a pronouncement that he wanted to do something for them. Started out with the roads. He wanted to build good, long-lasting roads for Ebo Town. And that's on the way. I think if you look at the roads, we've actually done a lot on the roads. The project is not done yet. There's a lot that needs to be done in there to complete it. But then again, aside the roads, the people of Ebo Town cried out to him with regards to the underground water seepage that they have in the area. That's a major problem. So he tasked me to look into that to see what solutions we can come up with. So essentially, when I did the studies in there, we've actually come up with a solution that's an underground water control system. It virtually starts with having to dewater dewater most of the sites over there, and installing an engineered system that's going to control the underground seepage of the water to a known elevation, whereby if the water seeps to that elevation, there's a system in there that will catch it and then discharges it, so the people can actually start living their lives effectively in there. It's not just about the water situation, because if we don't fix this, we can't build the roads that we need to build in that area effectively. If you go to Ebo Town right now, in some areas where we have the concrete roads, yeah, you can observe that you have water still seeping even through the cracks, yeah, even through the control joints, for that matter, not the crack, but control joints. And in some instances, the contractor had to stop because there was too much underground water in the area and virtually nothing could be done about it. So we went in there and did the studies. Now, we come up with a system which we will start implementing very soon that will effectively collect most of the underground water in that area and discharges it to a known collection point, gets filtered, and eventually gets discharged into the streams and creek along the area.
Timeline? I know they're watching. They'll be asking,
you know, we will be starting the project very soon.
Because they can't wait, I mean, for this project. Yeah.
I mean, absolutely.
They definitely suffered.
I mean, they've definitely, and I feel they applied.
Yeah.
Now, the reality is, you know, the president has given instructions, you know, a long time, and now we finally have everything that we need to get started on it. So maybe, you know, in the next, 2 to 3 weeks, you know, we'll actually be embarking on the project.
What is the total cost of this project, and who is funding it?
Right now, you know, we are doing a trial. Okay, and you know, with the trial, it's actually, you know, at bare cost, you know, bare minimum, you know, and it's being funded fully, you know, by the government. Now, the president just wants us, you know, to go out there, you know, and, you know, implement, you know, what we have recommended based on our studies to see how effective would it be given the situation in Ebo Town. And if it shows, you know, to be that it is the most effective, the president wants us, you know, to replicate that, you know, not just in Ebo Town, Joswang, Talinding, you know, all those areas that are seriously, you know, I mean, being inundated, you know, by underground water. And, you know, we are confident that, you know, once we get started on it, I mean, you yourselves, and you'll come over there and take pictures.
So when you look at the situation in Ebo Town, Joswang, and Talinding, I mean, people often try to blame this on illegal settlements. As far as this project is concerned, will people be displaced? And if so, what compensation or, I mean, relocation plans exist?
Nobody will be displaced. That's the whole idea. Okay, part of the reason, you know, why, it's just like what I told, you know, folks, you know, when we went to Jabang, you know, to, you know, really deal with the, you know, flooding issues over there. Every time we are tasked to undertake a project of such magnitude, we are always thinking about how do we maintain people and their lives and livelihoods the way they are, without having to create any interruption or disruption to their lives. Now, if we have to, it will be an absolute last resort. But as it stands right now, we don't intend to bother anybody. If anything, we intend to improve their lives as it is, because, which I'm pretty sure, you know, we will be successful in lowering the water table in most of the areas. But to lower the water table and control it is actually, you know, a chain effect, which, once we get the whole system in place and get the linkage working effectively, we will succeed in lowering the water table in that area and discharging it effectively.
Where are you going to discharge that water?
The Gyps River is right there,
Okay.
which is a tributary, you know, of the Gambia, of the River Gambia. Now, there are certain areas of the Gyps River that we will virtually, you know, have to excavate and make a collection point. There are certain properties, you know, that we are looking to acquire, empty lands, to also make, you know, temporary holding points, which will serve as filtration systems. And we are installing, you know, a piping system that's going to collect from those collection points and direct the water, you know, into these proposed, you know, sedimentation ponds that we are proposing, you know, right along the Gyps River.
What do you deal with people who live around that end there?
Nothing.
Are you not going to relocate them?
No, we will not relocate them. They'll stay in place.
And you think the implementation is not going to disrupt their livelihoods?
It's going to improve their livelihoods, as a matter of fact. I mean, you know, we've had some touching stories, you know, where, you know, neighbors actually came out and started lamenting the issues that they have been going through. You know, either be the rainy season or the dry season, you know, water is an issue for them. So quite honestly, we worked hard to ensure that, or to even come up with a recommendation, you know, whereby we wouldn't have to relocate anybody. Because it is just painful to really have to see these people, you know, struggle and suffer the way they did. And we have to add to the suffering by relocating them. You know, personally, I don't want to, you know, get engaged in that. And we're doing everything we possibly can to avoid having to relocate anybody.
I know we're running out of time. I mean, what is that key reforms should we expect, having served at, I mean, NRA for a while now as managing director? When you look at the institution, what you inherited, what will you point out and say, I have to make sure there's a reform before I leave this place?
Okay. Number one, embarking on what we just did, taking up feasibility and design for the country. This is very important. Reason being, it used to be that foreign consultants will sit in their home countries and design projects for the Gambia. And NRA will not have much to say about it, but just to accept it. Sometimes, you know, with our arms twisted. My goal is...
Twisted by who?
twisted, in the sense that, we don't have the option to say no to their proposals. But now, we have the option and the ability to say no, because we know just as much as they do. And in some instances, we are more a claimant with our current condition in our own country. Whatever it is that they can come up with, we can come up with the same thing. Whatever recommendations, designs, we can do just as much as they can. And the reality is, instead of relying on them to have mercy on us on how they design our projects, it a bit is too expensive, it a bit is with quality, it a bit it is lack of consideration of the people that live in the environment. Now we are in control of that. We can do it ourselves. And we will take all these things into account. We'll make sure that it is most cost effective for our country and our government. We will ensure that it impacts positively the people of our country that have to use these roads on a daily basis. Environmentally, we'll ensure that it is what's best for our communities. These are the things that I would love to see, and not just me alone, but also impact this knowledge in my young men and women who are virtually with me every day, every step of the way. And someday they'll take up the leadership mantle as well and ensure that this continues.
In just 1 minute, your message to the staff at NRA?
Oh, I'm proud of you guys. I'm proud of all the men and women at NRA, and I'm proud of all the efforts that you have been putting forward towards the development of your country. You guys are great. You are true soldiers, true patriots, and continue doing what you are doing. And a better day lies ahead for all of us here in this country, especially at NRA.
Thank you so much, MD Suleiman Sumare Jani. It was a pleasure having you on the program. I quite appreciated you coming. I mean, I was excited when you told me, yes, you are coming together. Of course, your communication officer, Arfan Kamara, he has been very supportive in arranging this interview. Thank you so much once again for coming. And I hope to have you in our subsequent editions, because the issue of road infrastructure is something that is, very dear to me, because I know how important it is to get good road networks, to ease the movement of people and goods. Thank you so much, MD, once again for coming in the program. Well, viewers, with that, we bring an end to this week's edition of your weekly State of Affairs program. I was your host, Aliou Cisse. Do join me next week. Until then, bye-bye from me and the entire team.